The drill bit screamed as it cut through ancient ice. Dr. Ji-won Park watched the depth meter climb higher. 3 kilometers down. And still the anomaly readings grew stronger. She wiped frost from her visor and studied the datapad in her gloved hands. "Something's wrong with these numbers," said Yuna Choi, the youngest member of the team. She stood beside Ji-won, her breath creating small clouds in the freezing air. "The density readings don't match any known mineral formation." Ji-won nodded slowly. The moon, Calrose 7, was supposed to be a simple survey mission. Find minerals, catalog them, move on to the next dead rock. But the scanners had found something else entirely. Something geometric. Something that shouldn't exist on a lifeless moon. Captain Daeho Kim approached from the landing craft, his military armor making soft mechanical sounds with each step. "My commander wants a progress report." "Are we wasting time here, Doctor?" "We'll know soon enough," Ji-won replied. She didn't like the military watching over her shoulder, but regulations required armed escorts in the outer rim. Too many pirates. Too many territorial disputes with alien civilizations. The drill broke through suddenly. The bit spun freely in empty space. Hyunwoo Lee, the team's engineer, killed the power and checked his instruments. "We've hit a chamber. A big one. The sensors can't even find the far wall." They set up repelling gear and descended into darkness. Helmet lights cut through the void, revealing glimpses of smooth walls that stretched beyond sight. This wasn't natural. Every surface showed signs of deliberate construction. Straight lines. Perfect angles. Materials that gleamed despite sitting in frozen darkness, for who knew how long. Yuna touched the wall. "It's warm." "Impossible," Daeho said. "Nothing down here has had power in thousands of years." But Ji-won felt it too. A faint warmth radiating through her glove. She pulled out a thermal scanner and frowned at the reading. 2 degrees above ambient temperature. Small, but measurable. Something was generating heat. They spread out across the chamber floor, sweeping their lights back and forth. Hyunwoo set up portable floodlights. When they flickered to life, everyone stopped moving. The Titan stood before them. It rose into the darkness like a metal mountain. 2 kilometers tall, Ji-won estimated. Maybe more. The shape was humanoid. Broad shoulders and long limbs, but built on a scale that made her feel like an insect. The surface wasn't smooth. Panels and plates covered every inch, interlocking in patterns too complex to follow. Here and there, symbols were carved deep into the metal. Writing, maybe, or circuit designs. What in the name of... Daeho's voice trailed off. Yuna walked forward, drawn by something she couldn't explain. Her light traced along the Titan's foot. Each toe was larger than their landing craft. "Look at the walls," she said quietly. They turned. The chamber walls were covered in the same symbols that marked the Titan. Thousands of them, layered over each other like pages in a book. Ji-won recognized some of the patterns. They looked like mathematical formulas. Basic geometry, but mixed with something else. Something that tickled the edge of her memory. "These symbols," Yuna said, her voice excited. "Some of them look like old Earth writing. Really old. I studied ancient languages in school. This part here looks like Sumerian numbers." Daeho laughed. But there was no humor in it. "That's crazy. Humans didn't even have spaceflight until 800 years ago. This thing is ancient." "How ancient?" Ji-won asked Hyunwoo. The engineer ran his dating equipment over a piece of metal that had flaked off near the Titan's foot. He ran the test 3 times, checking and rechecking. 50,000 years. Maybe older. The equipment has trouble with readings beyond that range. 50,000 years. Ji-won felt something cold settle in her stomach. 50,000 years ago, humans were still living in caves on Earth. They were hunting with stone tools. They didn't build cities, let alone starfaring machines. But someone had built this. Yuna placed her hand flat against the Titan's foot. "It's definitely warm. Warmer than the walls. Everyone back to the landing craft." Daeho ordered. "We need to report this to Fleet Command." "Wait," Jiwon said. She approached the Titan slowly, playing her light across its surface. Near what would be the chest on a human form, she found a seam, a door, maybe, or a maintenance hatch. The symbols around it were different from the others. Simpler, more deliberate. She pressed her hand against them. Light bloomed in the darkness. Everyone jumped back, weapons drawn, hearts racing. But the light wasn't aggressive. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Deep in the Titan's chest cavity, something was waking up. "We're leaving. Now," Daeho said, but Jiwon couldn't move. She watched the light pulse, slow and steady. 1 beat, 2 beats, 3. Like the Titan was breathing, like it had been sleeping, and her touch had started to wake it. Yuna stood beside her, staring up at the massive form. What did we just find? Jiwon had no answer. She only knew that everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe had just changed. They weren't the young species exploring an ancient galaxy. They were standing in front of something that suggested a different story. A story that had been buried and forgotten. The light pulsed again, stronger this time, in the cold darkness of Calros 7. Something ancient was opening its eyes. 3 days after the discovery, Admiral Soman Han arrived with 5 warships. She stood in the command tent on the surface, studying holographic images of the Titan with hard eyes. Around her, scientists and soldiers argued about what to do next. "We should destroy it," said one of the military advisors. "If this is a weapon from an alien civilization, we can't let it activate." "Destroy it?" Dr. Minho Kang pushed forward. He was the AI specialist they'd brought in from Earth, and he'd barely slept since seeing the data. "This is the most significant discovery in human history. We'd be fools to destroy it." Admiral Salmon raised a hand for silence. "Dr. Park, what's your assessment?" Jiwon stood at the hologram table, exhausted but focused. "The Titan hasn't shown any hostile behavior. The light pulses are steady, growing very slowly, stronger. Whatever's happening inside, it's not aggressive. It's almost like it's waiting." "Waiting for what?" Salmon asked. "We don't know yet." A new voice joined them. "Perhaps waiting to identify us." Jiho Nam entered the tent, brushing ice from his coat. He was young for a linguistic expert, but his reputation was solid. He'd spent the last 3 days studying the symbols in the chamber. Now he carried a datapad filled with his findings. Everyone turned to look at him. He seemed nervous under their attention but pressed forward. "The symbols aren't alien. At least, not entirely. About 30% match patterns from ancient Earth languages, Sumerian, as researcher Choi noted, but also Proto-Indo-European, Old Tamil, even some patterns that look like early Chinese oracle bone script." "That's impossible," Admiral Salmon said flatly. "I thought so too," Jiho agreed. "But the mathematical symbols are even stranger. They're advanced calculus, mixed with binary code. Computing language. The kind humans developed in the 21st century." Minho leaned forward. "Show me." Jiho displayed his analysis. The room fell silent as everyone studied the evidence. The symbols were undeniable. Human, or something that looked exactly like human writing, created 50,000 years before humans should have been capable of creating anything. "There's more," Jiho continued. "The linguistic patterns suggest a query. A question. The symbols, near where Dr. Park touched the Titan, translate roughly to identify origin, or possibly state maker." Daeho, who'd been standing guard at the tent entrance, spoke up. "Are you saying this thing wants to know who made it? Or who we are?" Jiho said. "The grammar is ambiguous." Minho stood abruptly. "I want to try something. Let me interface with it directly," Admiral Salmon considered. Around the tent, half the people nodded while the other half shook their heads. Finally, she spoke. "You have 12 hours. If anything goes wrong, "We're pulling out and calling for larger weapons." They returned to the chamber. Minho brought quantum computing equipment, the most advanced humanity possessed. He worked quickly, setting up connections to the Titan's surface, looking for any kind of data port or communication system. After 6 hours, he found something. Not a physical port, but a quantum field that surrounded the Titan like invisible skin. He configured his equipment to match the field's frequency and sent a simple pulse, binary, on and off, the most basic form of communication. The Titan responded immediately. Light flooded through its chest cavity. The pulse they'd seen before became a rhythm, faster, more complex, and then sounds echoed through the chamber. Not words, not exactly, but patterns in electromagnetic radiation that Jiho's equipment could translate. The translation appeared on everyone's screens. Makers? Jiwon felt her heart stop. The Titan was asking, questioning. It wanted to know who they were. Minho looked at her. "What do I tell it?" "Life," Jiwon thought fast. "How do you introduce yourself to something that might have been waiting 50,000 years?" She grabbed a datapad and typed quickly. Basic mathematics. Pi. The golden ratio. Universal constants that any intelligent being would recognize. Then, she added something else. Human genetic markers. DNA sequences that identified them as Homo sapiens from Earth. Minho transmitted the data. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Titan moved. "Everyone out!" Daeho shouted. But the Titan wasn't attacking. It was standing. Massive limbs that hadn't moved in millennia groaned and shifted. Ice shattered and fell like rain. The chamber shook. Ceiling panels cracked and debris tumbled down. They ran for the exit shaft, climbing frantically as the Titan rose to its full height. The chamber couldn't contain it. The ceiling exploded outward as the Titan stood fully upright, its head breaking through to the frozen surface of Calros 7. From the command tent, Admiral Salmon watched her sensors go wild. The Titan was active. Fully active. Energy readings spiked off the charts. On the surface, the team scrambled away from falling ice and rock. They turned to see the Titan standing against the stars, its form blocking out entire constellations. For a moment, it simply stood there, unmoving. Then its chest lit up with holographic light. A display activated, visible even in the bright sun. Everyone recognized what they were seeing. A star map. Detailed. Precise. Showing dozens of systems. And at the center of the map, highlighted in brilliant blue, was Earth. Yuna grabbed Jiwon's arm. "It knows where we're from." The Titan's head turned, its single-eye aperture focusing on the humans below. More displays activated along its body. Hundreds of them. And on every display, the same word appeared, written in Korean, English, Mandarin, Arabic, Hindi, Spanish, and 50 other human languages. Home. Admiral Salmon's hand hovered over the firing authorization. Her ships had weapons locked on the Titan. One word from her, and they'd fire with everything they had. But she didn't give the order, because the Titan wasn't threatening them. It was looking toward the stars, toward Earth, with what almost seemed like longing. And in that moment, everyone understood the same impossible truth. This Titan knew humanity. It had been waiting for them. And somehow, impossibly, it thought humans were its makers. The Titan stood motionless on Calros 7, while humanity argued about what it meant. News spread across every human colony. Within days, the galactic community knew as well. Emergency sessions were called in the Terran Assembly. Alien ambassadors demanded answers. Some praised the discovery. Others feared it. Eunbi Song arrived on the second week. She was a quantum historian, one of the few people who studied theoretical human prehistory. She'd spent years arguing that humanity's timeline had gaps that didn't make sense. Now, she stood in front of the Titan, with tears in her eyes. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew we were missing something, Minho had spent the weeks building a better interface. The Titan had allowed him access to its systems, opening pathways into its vast computer network. But the data was overwhelming. 50,000 years of memory, stored in quantum crystals that humanity barely understood. It's not fighting us, Minho explained to the assembled scientists. It wants us to know. It wants us to understand. Understand what? Chancellor Taewon-jung had come from Earth personally. He was old, experienced in politics, but this situation was beyond anything he'd faced. What is this thing telling us? Eunbi stepped forward. She'd been working with Jiho to translate the Titan's memory fragments. It's telling us who we were. Who we really were. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared, pulled from the Titan's memories. Cities. Not modern cities, but something else. Structures that made current human architecture look primitive. Ships that moved between stars. Technology that seemed like magic. 50,000 years ago, Eunbi said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was revealing. Humanity wasn't living in caves. We were exploring the galaxy. We were called the First Terran Mandate. And we built these Titans. The room erupted in argument. Impossible. Crazy. There was no evidence. But Eunbi kept talking. Kept showing images from the Titan's memory. We built 7 of them. Guardians. World builders. They protected younger species. Helped planets develop life. The Titans could move continents, seed atmospheres, defend entire star systems. She paused, and her expression darkened. And then something came. Something the Titans called the silence. The images changed. Now they showed darkness. Not empty space, but something worse. A void that consumed light, consumed matter, consumed everything it touched. And worse than that, it consumed minds. Consciousness itself. The First Terran Mandate fought a war against the silence, Eunbi continued. They fought for centuries, but they were losing. The silence couldn't be killed. It adapted to every weapon, learned from every battle, and it was spreading. Ji-won watched the images, feeling cold despite the warm room. They made a choice, Eunbi said quietly. A terrible choice. They had a device, something that could manipulate causality itself, time and reality. They used it to erase themselves from the timeline. Erase themselves? Chancellor Taewon looked confused. How? Is that possible? Jiho answered. They created a causality loop. They sent humanity back to the beginning, reset us to primitive state on Earth, removed all evidence of our civilization from the galaxy. From the perspective of the timeline, the First Terran Mandate never existed. But why? Daeho asked. He'd been listening from the back of the room. Why? Why destroy themselves? To save everyone else, Eunbi said. The silence was drawn to human consciousness. We were the primary target. By erasing ourselves, by resetting our development, we broke the connection. The silence lost its anchor in this region of space. It was forced back into the dark. Between galaxies, Yuna spoke up. But the Titans remained. Yes, Eunbi nodded. They couldn't erase the Titans. The machines were built to exist outside normal causality. They were meant to survive, to wait, buried on remote worlds, waiting for humanity to evolve again, to rediscover them when we were ready to understand the truth. The room fell silent. Everyone processed what they were hearing. It was insane. It rewrote everything, and yet the evidence was standing right outside, a 2-kilometer-tall testament to an impossible past. Chancellor Taewon spoke carefully. Does anyone else know this? The other species? The galactic community has legends, Jiho said. Old stories about guardian machines, about protector titans, that helped young species survive. They always assumed these were myths or stories about ancient aliens. They never connected them to humanity. And now? Taewon asked. Now they're scared, Ji-won said bluntly. If we built these things once, what's stopping us from building them again? What's stopping humanity from reclaiming whatever power we had before? News from Earth confirmed her assessment. The Vex Collective, a powerful alien empire, had issued demands. The Titan must be destroyed or handed over to neutral custody. Other species echoed the sentiment. Humanity was young. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity couldn't be trusted with ancient weapons. Minho received a message from the Titan while the politicians argued. He read it 3 times before sharing with the others. The Titan says there are 7 total, each one buried on a different world. And it says something else. What? Ji-won asked. The silence is returning. Minho looked up from his display, his face pale. It detected the Titan's activation. It's coming back. As if to confirm his words, alerts began flooding in from deep space monitoring stations. Gravitational anomalies at the edge of the galaxy. Something vast was moving through the emptiness between stars. Something that bent space and swallowed light. Admiral Salmon pulled up the readings. She'd seen a lot in her military career, but these numbers made no sense. What am I looking at? Unbi answered. The silence. Exactly as the Titan's memories described. It's coming back to finish what it started 50,000 years ago. Chancellor Taewon stood frozen. He'd come here to manage a political crisis. Now he faced something far worse. An enemy that had fought humanity once before. An enemy that had forced an entire civilization to erase itself rather than let others die. The Titan's displays updated. New star maps appeared, showing the locations of the other 6 Titans. And beneath the maps, a message in simple human languages. Wake the others. The silence comes. Makers must remember. Makers must fight. Yuna looked at Ji-won. Can we? Can we wake them? In time? Ji-won didn't know. She looked at the star map, calculating distances and travel times. It would take everything humanity had. Every ship, every resource. And even then, they might fail. But the alternative was letting the silence return unopposed. Chancellor Taewon made his decision. Send out the fleet. Find the other Titans. Wake them. And at the edge of the galaxy, something dark and hungry heard the Titan's signal and moved faster toward its ancient prey. The fleets launched within days. 7 expeditions to 7 worlds, racing against time while the silence drew closer. Ji-won led one team. Other scientists and military commanders led the rest. The galaxy watched with a mixture of hope and fear. Commander Seung-jae Park, Ji-won's younger brother, commanded the special forces assigned to her expedition. He was a good soldier, practical and brave. He didn't entirely believe the story about ancient humanity, but he trusted his sister. How do we know these things will help us? He asked, as their ship approached the second Titan's location. Maybe they'll just make things worse. Ji-won didn't have a good answer. She was gambling on faith, on the belief that the first Terran mandate had known what they were doing when they built these machines. The second Titan, designated Architect 4, was buried beneath an ocean on a water world. They used drilling submarines to reach it, working in complete darkness. When they finally made contact, the Titan woke violently. Seung-jae barely got his people out before it broke through the ocean floor, water cascading from its massive form. This Titan didn't immediately recognize them. Its weapons systems activated, energy gathering in its hands. Ji-won realized the problem instantly. Seung-jae's soldiers had their rifles pointed at the Titan. "Lower your weapons," she screamed. "It thinks we're hostile." The soldiers obeyed, but slowly, reluctantly. The Titan paused. It scanned them with light beams, analyzing, comparing their genetic markers to something in its memory. Finally, its weapons powered down, but the encounter showed the danger. These Titans had been built for war. They were waking up after 50,000 years, disoriented, defensive. One wrong move, could be catastrophic. Across the galaxy, other teams had similar experiences. One Titan attacked a Vex collective warship that got too close, nearly starting an interstellar war. Another refused to wake at all, its systems too damaged by time. But slowly, Titan by Titan, they succeeded. Hana Im became crucial to the effort. She was a pilot, the best in the fleet, with reflexes that bordered on superhuman. When the Titan designated Architect 7 woke, it demanded a test. It wanted to see if humanity had maintained their skills, their instincts. Hana flew her ship, the Time's Dauntless Asterisk, through an obstacle course the Titan created. Asteroids moving at impossible speeds, gravity wells that changed direction without warning. She threaded through it all, her mind sharp and focused. When she finished, the Titan accepted her. More than that, it bonded with her. The Titan's navigation protocols interfaced with her ship's systems. Hana found she could feel the Titan's presence, almost like another person in her mind. "It's testing us," she reported back to command. "All of them are. They're checking if we're worthy. If we've evolved enough." Yuna discovered something similar with Architect 1, the first Titan they'd found. She spent hours with it. Not through computers like Minho, but through direct contact. She would place her hands on its surface and somehow understand what it was trying to communicate. Images, feelings, concepts that had no words. Minho studied her during these sessions. "You have a genetic marker," he told her. "Something rare. About 1 in every 100,000 humans carry it. It's a remnant from the first Terran mandate. You're more compatible with the Titans because your DNA remembers them." Yuna looked at her hands. "I'm connected to them?" "We all are," Minho said. "But some, more than others." Meanwhile, the galactic situation grew worse. The Vex Collective sent a fleet to intercept one of the Titan recovery operations. They claimed humanity was violating dozens of treaties, that awakening ancient weapons was an act of aggression. Sungjae's forces engaged them in a desperate battle, holding them off just long enough for the Titan to wake and join the fight. The Vex fleet retreated immediately when they saw the Titan. Nothing in their arsenal could even scratch its shields. But one of their representatives, Kyungmin Baek, defected. He approached the human fleet under a white flag, requesting asylum. When he met with Jiwon and the other commanders, he brought an old data crystal. "This is from my people's ancient archives," he said. "We have legends too. Stories about the time of darkness. When our species nearly went extinct, our ancestors spoke of metal giants that came from the stars and saved us. They taught us how to build shelters, how to survive. We thought they were gods. My dot, my dot, my dot." He showed them images carved in ancient Vex temples. The shapes were unmistakable. Titans, walking among primitive Vex, helping them, protecting them. "Your first Terran mandate didn't just protect humanity," Kyungmin said quietly. "They protected all of us. Every young species in this region of space. And my people have forgotten. We should be helping you, not fighting you." His defection caused a split in the Vex collective. Some called him a traitor. Others began to remember their own forgotten histories. Similar stories emerged from other species. The Titans had touched many worlds. 6 Titans now stood ready. They gathered in human space, forming a defensive perimeter around Earth and the core colonies. Each one was unique. Different sizes, different weapons, different purposes. Architect 1 was the largest, a guardian. Architect 7 was built for war, sleek and deadly. Others were builders, engineers, capable of manipulating matter on a planetary scale. But the 7th Titan, Architect 2, remained silent. All attempts to wake it failed. It simply wouldn't respond. And then, the silence arrived. Deep space stations detected it first, a wave of nothing spreading through the galaxy. Star systems going dark. Not destroyed, but erased. Ships vanished without sending distress calls. Entire planets stopped transmitting. Billions of beings simply ceased to exist. The Titans turned toward the threat. Their sensors could detect what human instruments could not. The silence wasn't a physical thing. It was something else. Something that existed in the space between spaces, feeding on consciousness itself. Hana, connected to Architect 7, felt its fear. Real fear. These machines that had fought gods and shaped worlds were afraid of what was coming. Ji-Wan stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the Titans take defensive positions. They were beautiful, in a terrible way. Humanity's lost legacy, standing guard over the species that had forgotten building them. Seung-jae joined her. Do you think they're enough? Before Ji-Wan could answer, Architect 1 sent a message. Direct to her, to Minho, to Yuna, to all the key personnel. The message was clear and devastating. Titans cannot defeat the silence alone. Weapons are not enough. Makers must remember what they sacrificed. Makers must become what they once were. Makers must become Titans. Ji-Wan read the message 3 times. When she finally understood what it meant, she felt ice in her stomach. The Titans weren't asking humans to fight beside them. They were asking humans to merge with them, to become one with the machines, to sacrifice their humanity to gain the power necessary to face the silence. And time was running out. The debate lasted 3 hours. Chancellor Taewon-jung stood before the Terran assembly, exhausted and afraid. Around him, representatives shouted and argued. Some called the Titans' request a trap. Others said it was suicide. A few believed it was the only way. We would be asking people to give up their humanity, one representative said. To merge their minds with machines. We don't even know if they'd survive. Eunbi had spent days analyzing the Titans' memory banks with Minho. Now she presented their findings. The first Terran mandate did this regularly. The Titans were always meant to be worn, like armor for the mind. But it's not simple. The process requires genetic compatibility, mental discipline, and willingness. Force someone, and it fails. Worst case, it kills them. How many are compatible? Admiral Salmon asked. Unknown, Minho replied. But based on the genetic markers we've identified, possibly millions across human space. Maybe more. Ji-Wan spoke up. We need volunteers. People who understand the risk. And choose it anyway. The assembly argued further. But time was running out. The silence had consumed 3 star systems already. It was moving faster. Learning. Adapting. In 48 hours, it would reach the outer colonies. Chancellor Taewon made the decision. Put out the call. Volunteers only. Explain the risks clearly. The response shocked everyone. Within 12 hours, 50,000 people volunteered. Young and old. Military and civilian. Scientists like Yuna, who'd worked with the Titans. Soldiers like Seung-jae, who trusted their commanders. Pilots like Hana, who already felt connected to the machines. Ordinary people who simply refused to watch their species fall without fighting back. The merging process began immediately. Each Titan had neural chambers deep in their chest cavities. The volunteers entered in small groups, lying down in crystalline cradles while the Titans' systems interfaced with their minds. Some succeeded immediately. Yuna was one of the first. She entered Architect 1's chamber and felt the Titan's consciousness merge with her own. It was overwhelming. 50,000 years of memory flooded through her. She saw the rise and fall of the first Terran mandate. She felt the pain of watching the silence consume entire civilizations. She understood the desperate choice to erase everything rather than let others die. But she also felt something else. Hope. The first Terran mandate had believed humanity would return. They'd built the Titans as a gift across time, trusting their descendants to be strong enough, wise enough, compassionate enough to use them well. When Yuna emerged from the chamber, she was changed. Her consciousness existed in two places simultaneously. In her human body, small and fragile, and in Architect 1, vast and powerful. She could feel the Titan's systems as extensions of herself. Its sensors were her eyes, its weapons were her hands. She was human and Titan both, but not everyone succeeded. The merging required perfect balance, too much human ego, and the mind shattered under the weight of the Titan's memories. Too much surrender, and the person's identity dissolved into the machine. Thousands failed. Some died. Others survived, but couldn't complete the process. Ji-won watched the casualties mount and felt sick. But the volunteers kept coming. They knew the risks. They chose anyway. Hyunwoo merged with Architect 5. Hana merged with Architect 7. Her piloting instincts combining perfectly with the War Titan's combat systems. Seung-jae surprised everyone by succeeding with Architect 4, his military discipline giving him the focus necessary to maintain himself against the flood of ancient memories. Within 30 hours, 6 Titans had human partners. Not controllers. Partners. The minds worked together. Human intuition combined with machine precision. The silence reached human space. It came as a wave of darkness that made reality itself scream. Space folded wrong. Light moved in directions that didn't exist. And consciousness began to fade. People on the outer colonies stopped moving mid-step. Their minds simply went away, consumed by something that fed on thought itself. The Titans moved to intercept. The battle that followed broke the laws of physics. The Titans could manipulate gravity, fold space, strike at enemies across dimensional barriers. Their weapons weren't bullets or lasers. They were reality itself, twisted and shaped into weapons. But the silence adapted. It learned from every attack, every defense. It was fighting the way it had fought 50,000 years ago, using techniques that had defeated the first Terran mandate. Yuna, merged with Architect 1, felt despair creeping in. They were losing. The silence was too strong, too adaptable. For every attack that worked, it evolved a defense. For every tactic they tried, it found a counter. Then Hyunwoo, merged with Architect 5, discovered something. He was an engineer at heart, curious about how things worked. Instead of fighting the silence, he studied it, and in studying it, he understood. It's not evil, he transmitted to the others. It's afraid. The revelation spread through the merged minds. They could see it now, hidden beneath the silence's hunger. It wasn't a monster. It was the echo of civilizations that had tried to escape death by abandoning physical form. But the transformation had gone wrong. They'd become trapped between existence and non-existence, unable to die, unable to live, condemned to eternal hunger for the consciousness they'd lost. The silence didn't want to destroy. It wanted to end. It wanted peace. Yuna made a choice. Instead of attacking, she opened Architect 1's systems completely. She broadcast her own consciousness. Human and Titan merged, directly at the silence. Not as a weapon, as an offering. We understand, she transmitted. We know what you've lost. We can help you find peace. The silence hesitated. For the first time in 50,000 years, it stopped consuming and listened. The other Titans followed Yuna's lead. They didn't fight. They offered themselves as anchors, as guides. They showed the silence, a path back to the cosmic background from which all consciousness emerged, a way to dissolve peacefully, to finally rest after millennia of suffering. The silence accepted. The darkness began to fade. Not quickly, but gradually, like ice melting in spring sun. The consumed minds couldn't be restored. They were gone. But the advance stopped. The hunger ended. And slowly, the silence released its grip on reality and dissolved back into the quantum foam of existence. The war ended not with violence, but with compassion. In the aftermath, humanity faced a new reality. 6 Titans now stood guardian, each bonded with human minds that would live as long as the machines endured. Yuna still existed in her human body, but she was also Architect 1. She would watch over Earth for generations, maybe millennia. Ji-won visited her friend, standing at the base of the massive machine. "Are you still you?" she asked. Yuna's voice came from speakers and from her human form simultaneously. "Yes, I'm still me. But I'm more now. I remember being the first Terran mandate. I remember building these machines and making the choice to erase ourselves, and I'm so proud of what we became. We came back, and we chose mercy over revenge." The galaxy began to heal. The Vex Collective formally apologized, recognizing the Titans as protectors, not weapons. Other species shared their own ancient stories, piecing together a fuller picture of what the first Terran mandate had been. Guardians, teachers, protectors of all young life. Humanity chose not to reclaim that role as conquerors. They'd learned from their ancient past. Power without wisdom led to destruction. Instead, they offered the Titans as shields for everyone. Any species threatened by darkness could call on them. Admiral Soman, now retired, visited the memorial built for those who died attempting the merge. She saluted them, then saluted the Titans, standing watch overhead. The sacrifice had been terrible, but humanity had proven something important. They could remember their power without forgetting their compassion. Far away, on a distant world, Architect 2 finally woke. It had been waiting, watching to see what humanity would choose: power or mercy, dominion or protection. Satisfied with what it saw, the 7th Titan took its place among the others. The Titans stood watch over the galaxy. And humanity, finally understanding who they'd been and who they'd become, looked to the stars with ancient eyes made new.